Your entire adult life, you've been told to pursue work-life balance. The problem is, it's a myth. One that not only offers false hope, but has a negative impact on your work, health, mental well-being, relationships. So yeah, there's that. Welcome to the No Hustle, the place for you to escape the hustle. I am Turndog, your guide and companion, and in today's video, we're going to shine a light on work-life balance and how, well, it's not so great and it kind of doesn't exist. Now look, it isn't that balance is bad, and it isn't that you shouldn't pursue a degree of balance with the various different aspects that make up your worlds. Work being one of them, and your personal well-being being another. The problem is the world's a different place these days. Very, very different to what it was 50, 60 years ago, where there was a more defined line between work and life. And by trying to pursue work-life balance, well, you're probably making things worse. You probably feel guilty, and you're probably leading yourself down the route of burnout. But don't worry, there is an alternative, and that's what we're going to share in this video. A new, fresh perspective, a flip of a mindset switch, if you will. And it can have transformational impacts across your entire life. Also going to look at 4 of the aspects of work-life balance that, well, hit you hard. But first, before we get into any of that, make sure you leave a comment with the aspect that we're about to discuss which speaks to you the most and that you feel relates the most. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, leave a thumbs up if this video speaks to you. Let's dive in. The first aspect here is that your life is singular. You don't have several. Sure, there are different aspects that play into your world, like your health and your work and your relationships. But at any given point, your life is one. So there is no work-life balance. And trying to fit yourself into that mold does nothing but create a great deal of guilt. Because if you're working and you have the audacity to think about your personal self, maybe something going on at home, you feel guilty because you feel like you have to commit yourself to your work. Likewise, if you're at home and you happen to start thinking about tomorrow's tasks, again, that drives guilt because you're led to believe that when you are home, you should be home, and when you're working, you should be working. And these are just work and life. There's other aspects that come into play here, like your health, like your personal and mental well-being, your relationships with those you love. If you pursue work-life balance, these things are always competing against one another, and it forces you to be more binary, where if you're in one, you cannot think or comprehend the others. But life just doesn't work like that. You are a human being, and just because you are at home doesn't mean you won't think about work, and just because you're at work doesn't mean you aren't going to be bringing in certain issues, certain worries, certain excitements. So work-life balance forces you to embrace this ever competition between various aspects of your world. It creates guilt, it creates overwhelm, it leads you to burnout. The second point is this idea of self-identity. This has been a big personal struggle for mine, where I feel I have to wear certain masks around certain people. Maybe you show up in a particular way when you are around colleagues. Maybe you wear a different type of mask when you're pursuing a new client. Maybe you have a certain type of mask at home with your family, your kids, your loved ones. And you wear different masks depending on different social circles. Old friends from school to more recent ones, maybe. And of course, in today's modern world that is online, you're probably going to wear different masks across different social media platforms or forums or communities or whatever else. It begs the question after a while, who are you? Constantly trying to pursue work-life balance forces you to wear these different masks where you feel you have to be a particular person around a particular type of person. You just begin to dilute yourself. After a while, you probably forget who the real you even is. Maybe even right now, you're struggling to comprehend who the real you may be. The third point is life evolves. You're constantly moving from one chapter and transition to another. If, for instance, you have a young infant at home, life is going to look very different when that infant becomes a 4 or 5-year-old, and different still when that 4 and 5-year-old becomes a teenager and eventually leaves the nest. And that's just kids. You go through different chapters in life as your values and your principles evolve, as your motivations and challenges do. Life does not stand still. It is constantly evolving. You, as an individual, are constantly evolving. And it's important to embrace this. But if you're constantly trying to pursue some kind of balance between your work and your life, you're not embracing this ever transitioning, malleable state that is the world around you. You're not embracing the fact that your personal motivations, passions, purpose are evolving. So you find yourself stifled, and it can lead to not just burnout and guilt and a loss of self-identity, but all manners of pain as you start to project that onto others. The fourth and final point, and this is an important one, is that the world today is really different. There was a time when most people would go to work in an office or a factory or whatever else, and they would clock in at a certain time and they would clock out at another certain time, go home and repeat over and over again for many, many years. For most people, that's no longer the case. There's remote working for one, and the very idea of what an actual job role looks like is vastly different and is only going to become more different as time goes on. But it's not just the nature of work that is different. We are connected to it and to others in a completely different way, through social media, through the online world, through mobile phones, email, you name it. It is a very different world. And the lines between work and life have blurred, come closer together to the point where there often isn't a line, at least not one that you can perceive. So if you're trying to pursue a balance between work and life with this ever diminishing line, again, you're going to force yourself into a state of guilt and overwhelm and inadequacy because you never feel like you are getting the balance right. And that's because that balance doesn't exist, at least not in the same way it once did. So, if that doesn't exist, what does? So an alternative we like to focus on here at the No Hustle is what we call whole life balance, or as my friend and mentor Marzel talks about it, as integration. I'm going to link to his post in the description because the way he compares balance and integration is fascinating and certainly aligns with everything being discussed in this video. But this is a way I see it. If you pursue work-life balance, you're trying to balance a more traditional scale where you'll put one object at one end, another object at the other, and constantly try to balance them. Now, the problem with that is your life isn't just A and B. There are many forces at play here. So rather than trying to balance a scale, I liken it to you standing on a round ball. Now, if you've never tried to do that, I encourage you to give it a go. It is not easy. For starters, there's a whole lot of internal motion in play here, as one movement of a part of limb counteracts with another. But there's also a lot of external forces at play here, like wind and vibrations, and maybe just a distraction in your periphery that just takes your attention away for a microsecond. So you're constantly making these micro adjustments just to stay on top of the ball. And if you do reach a state of stillness, it's fleeting because it does and will change. Part of your body will move, or something outside of it will, and you will just have to constantly counteract to stay atop of the ball. This is what life is like, and this is the idea of whole life balance. There's no such thing as a balanced state, and if you do reach it, it will be fleeting at best. Day to day, it will always change. The idea of whole life balance isn't about trying to separate and segment the various different aspects and facets that make up your world. It's about integrating them. It's about appreciating that they are a part of your one life, and that some days you're going to have to put a little bit more focus into one thing, and other days you will have to put a little bit of focus into another. But it's never, or at least never completely, at the expense of the other. Whereas work-life balance teaches you to work at the expense of your life, or to focus on your life at the expense of your work. And that is toxic. It does not exist. It will catch up to you. It does lead to burnout. It does send you down the path of hustle. But it also creates a great deal of guilt and inadequacy and insecurity. So after watching this video, I'm hoping you have a new appreciation of your world. And if you've found yourself pushing and pursuing a version of work-life balance, I encourage you to take a step back and think about it from a different, fresh perspective. Balance is important. Setting boundaries is important. But your life is not black and white. It is multicolored, beautifully nuanced, and ever evolving. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below talking about what has spoken to you the most. I would love to read your version of whole life balance in its current state. Thank you for watching, and more importantly, thank you for being you.